Welcome to Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston, PhD. Glenn has held his doctorate in psychology for more than 30 years and is also a former multi-million-dollar consultant to the big food industry and uses his experience to help you defeat your cravings. This show will help you to focus on dramatically reducing cravings and leave the diet mentality behind, so you can more easily and effortlessly achieve your health, fitness, and body composition goals. Please remember, no doctor-patient relationship is created via this show, and you are responsible for confirming any changes to your diet, health, or psychological routines with an appropriately licensed professional before implementing them. Now, before we get started, if you haven't yet downloaded the free smartphone app to access dozens of these recordings all in one place, as well as to avail yourself of a confidential community for support, motivation, and assistance, please visit the podcast link on defeatyourcravings.com as soon as possible. And now, here's your host, Dr. Glenn Livingston.
Hey, it's the very good Dr. Glenn Livingston, and I am here with a kind-hearted woman named Hope, who has agreed to let me share this session with you so that you can benefit from her experience and strength and wisdom and observations, as well as her trials and stumbles and falls. Hope, how are you today?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
Very good. Tell me, what was it that made you interested in doing this session with me?
I just started the intensive a few weeks ago. And before that, had many, many months of reading the book, getting the workbook, and just hemming and hawing and saying, okay, I'm listening to everything. I can do it on my own, but just really needed that extra push. And I also listen to the Q&A calls, and sometimes I get involved, but just through some of the tasks that I've been doing with the intensive, some things have come up that I'm like, oh, okay, I need to think about more than I think I was thinking about before.
Hope, like what?
Well, about in high school, which was well over 25 years ago, I had different eating issues, whether I wasn't eating at all, or then eating too much and then getting rid of it, or then just binging and not getting rid of it. Those issues from like 25 years ago, I kind of thought those were all gone and not bothering me. But I think the more I listen to the pig squeals, the more that comes out. I know it's very typical, but the whole fear of failure is bigger than I thought. I've just been kind of wanting to deal with that a little bit more, because that fear of failure really gets stuck in your head. So that's where I'm at. I just want to kind of talk about that and figure out how I can get beyond that.
Let's talk about that in detail. For people who might be wondering, and Hope is mentioning the intensive, she's talking about our intensive online coaching program. So if I could just summarize, you were hemming and hawing, and then when you got into the intensive, you were encouraged to take a closer look, and you shined a light on some of the irrational thoughts that were fueling the maybe previous behaviors that you left behind, and you're just kind of looking at the whole thing in detail. Have you picked up any of the old behaviors?
No, definitely not. And I know I never will. My coach was like, well, put that on your never list. I said, well, yes, I know that for sure. I think it's the knowing that it's embarrassing. I think that's the first thing. Embarrassing that, not necessarily that I had that disorder, but embarrassing that I failed so many times since then.
What's dogging you now is the fear of failure. What form does that take?
It takes the form of worrying about the judging eyes. Like, even if I know I'm doing well, right? I set my rules. I know right now I'm within my rules. But then, let's say my husband, for example, he doesn't know I'm doing this program. But I still don't want any judging eyes of, oh, well, that's a lot on your plate. And I'm thinking, well, it's my meal and not my snack. And, whatever it is, like I had my rule, but I'm just worried that I'm going to try to go slowly. And I guess, I don't know. I don't want to disappoint myself. I don't want to disappoint others. My pig is saying, I'm not trying hard enough.
Wants you to restrict more.
Right. And other people will notice that. But I know, okay, if I restrict more, then it becomes in the danger zone for me. Does that make sense?
It does. So the pig says that you're going too slowly. You really should restrict more. Otherwise, you're going to be judged by your husband, by other people who will be disappointed in you, and you can't deal with that judgment. So therefore, you should restrict more, which it knows at the other end is a binge, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. Who is it that's most likely to judge you?
To be honest, myself, if you really get down to it, my husband is not very judgmental. So I think it's really just he doesn't have a weight problem. So I maybe just think he thinks that. He would be supportive. I'm just embarrassed because he doesn't have a weight problem and I do.
Okay. So let's just articulate in full. This will be a little uncomfortable, but it's good for you to do it because then we can dispute it. So you recognize that it's you that's judging yourself. What are you specifically saying to yourself? You're saying it's my weight is embarrassing.
My weight is embarrassing. My weight going up and down so many times in so many years is embarrassing. To me, that shows failure. That doesn't show success. And I feel like anytime I eat, whether it's true or not, there will always be judging eyes on me, whether it's my own eyes, or somebody else. I'm always kind of thinking, well, that's why she's overweight, because she's eating that. These past few weeks from the intensive, I've had dreams because one of my rules is no sweets. And I've had like nightmares almost of like eating something. And then after in the dream going, I can't believe I just ate that.
That's part of the impulse control learning process.
Okay.
We are paralyzed in our dreams. Our muscles are paralyzed and we can't actually behave in most cases. There's some people who sleepwalk and eat, but 98% of the population doesn't do that. And so when you're trying to get control of an impulse, often you will start dreaming that you're acting out the impulse as opposed to acting it out in real life. And it's actually a good sign.
Okay. That's good. Good to hear.
Yeah. Most people don't know that. Okay.
No.
So my weight is very embarrassing. Having yo-yoed up and down is embarrassing. And anytime I eat, I feel the judgment of other people, mostly myself, saying this is why she's overweight.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So can we take those one at a time and see if we can dispute that?
Sure.
Okay. Your weight is embarrassing. How much weight do you need to lose?
I need to lose 50 pounds to be at the highest level of normal on like the BMI charts.
Okay. Okay. So about 50 pounds. And do you know anybody, not yourself, do you know anybody that you admire, love, like, enjoy spending time with who's 50 pounds or more overweight?
I do.
Tell me about somebody.
My best friend and I have always talked about our weight problems and weight issues together, and I love her like a sister. So
can we give her a name?
Rose.
And when you look at Rose, do you judge her?
Not at all.
What do you think when you look at Rose?
I see a strong woman who works hard, loves her kids, is super kind, super hardworking, creative. I mean, she's amazing. And she is struggling with her weight as well. So I empathize with her, but I just want her to be happy and healthy.
You love her. You love Rose.
Absolutely.
What do you think Rose thinks when she looks at you?
I mean, probably all of the same things, to be honest.
Is Rose thinking you should be embarrassed about your weight and that you can't believe you've yo-yoed all these years and it's really humiliating and you shouldn't be able to enjoy food even when it's exactly on your plan and you know you're doing the right thing?
No, and she's probably like, I get it. I've been there. I am there. We're kind of on the same page about that sort of thing.
And if Rose started to say that she was feeling so embarrassed and humiliated and she's just yo-yoed up and down and she's showing all this failure instead of success and she can't seem to enjoy her eating, what would you tell her?
I would be so sad for her and I'd tell her, not to let it ruin her daily life and enjoyment of life. And I see where you're going with this.
You'd give her a hug.
Yeah.
And you'd ask her what the healthiest way she thought she should be eating realistically, knowing about the binge and restrict cycle, knowing about disturbed eating thinking, knowing what healthy eating thinking really was. You'd ask her, what does she believe with her brain at the bottom of her heart is the best way for her to eat? And you give her a hug and you'd say, you do that, Rose, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think about the idea that having tried a multitude of times and had partial successes is more predictive of a future permanent success than not having tried at all?
So I've heard you say that before on other podcasts, and I want to believe it. I really do. And I don't know why I just can't believe that for me.
How could it not be true? How could you engage in an activity aiming at an archery target trying to learn how to play soccer, trying to learn French, getting up and trying things, having partial success each time. How could you not have learned from those experiences?
Well, I mean, that's a good point. And I tell my children all the time that, what do you think, you're going to be an expert right away? No, you have to practice and get better at it. So you're right. That theoretically makes a lot of sense. It's just, I guess what I say to myself is, well, is this the time I'm going to get it right? And if it's not, how embarrassing.
Your pig is very tricky. If you
Sorry,
don't get
I'm a tough one.
if you don't get it right this time, then it's embarrassing. What would you say if Rose said that?
Try again. Keep at it. It's for your health. It's for you.
Would Rose be more likely to get it right if she kept entertaining the thought that she was going to be really embarrassed if she didn't, or if she purged that thought from her mind and embraced a confident notion that she was going to get it right?
Even if you didn't know the future, the confidence helps the present, and that makes a lot of sense.
Can I ask you a wild question?
Yes.
What if you've already got it right? What if this is the way? What if you figured out the right beginning of your path and you figured out a way to lose weight slowly? What if this is really the way? What if you've got it right?
That brought tears to my eyes. Yeah, that would be amazing. That would be everything.
Which would you rather believe? Which would cultivate more positive energy that you could use to pursue the goal?
You know, it's so funny. I'm a realist, right? I'll think, well, I don't want to think I got it right if I didn't, but I like phrasing it, what if I got it right this time? Because that helps the realist in me go, okay, I can work with that confidence and that positivity with that little what if in front of it.
Okay.
Because it still gives me that hope, right? It still gives me that confidence, but it allows the realist in me to be like, okay, it's not one of those, I got it right, even if I didn't, you know? So I really, really like that what if in front. And that still gives me that really good feeling.
Because your pig is having a field day with you, saying, what if you're wrong? Here's the truth. We don't know for certain if this is the right food plan for you. We're taking our best guess. You haven't even said what it is. We're taking our best guess. And, you know, I like people to flood their body with nutrition at a slight caloric deficit. And I always say the fastest way to lose weight is slowly, so you don't trigger the feast and famine cycle and you don't restrict and then binge. I want you to just slowly but surely get to where you need to go. But because that's the truth, because we're experimenting with a food plan and you're kind of new to the methodology, it is realistic to say, maybe this is right, maybe this is wrong, maybe it needs some adjustment. I mean, that's a very pragmatic, realistic way of being in the world. The question is, given that that's the case, is it more likely to succeed? You're going to give this the best shot if you focus on the possibility that it's right or the possibility that it's wrong. And I can tell you that if you focus on the possibility that it's wrong, you're guaranteed to fail, because you'll be walking around with uncertainty and without the confidence to pursue this new way of being. The pig slop is too pleasurable, and the pig can just wear you down with your insecurity until you run after the pig slop. But with the confidence, you can pursue the target with gusto, and you're infinitely more likely to succeed if you pursue the target with gusto than if you let the pig wear you down. So what if this is right? And you know what, Hope? It really might be. We've been at this for a long time. We're not suggesting this by the method of rectal extraction. We really thought this through. We've looked at the evidence. We've hired researchers. There's a very good chance this is right. And what if it is?
Feels great. Feels doable and realistic, and I can do it. Yeah.
Well, what questions or concerns do you have about it? What's the pig saying?
So the pig is saying right now, that sigh that I just had was, okay, I'm doing well with my no sweets rule, really well. And I'm feeling good about that. And so my next set of rules that I'm working on is about portions and seconds. Also eating while I'm cooking or eating my children's leftovers. That's where I'm working on that next. So my pig is saying, well, are you going to really weigh and measure everything? And then everyone will know that you're trying, and then, then they'll judge. So I think I'm stuck on the second half of my rules with the portions, and how do I go about not being so obvious? I mean, I can be obvious about not eating other people's leftovers by not eating other people's leftovers. That's a good rule, and I can do that, and that should just be there. I think it's the portion control where my pig is squealing.
You would probably be better not to be someone that weighed and measure in front of everybody else. I think that's probably not good for your dynamic. If nothing else works, you can do it and just deal with the squeals. But I think it would be better if you didn't do that.
So how should I build a rule around not overeating at dinner, for example? We tend to have long dinners, sit for a while. And
Do you tend to know what you're going to have?
sometimes I'm not a very good planner.
Well, here are some things that people do, and it's up to you if you want to. Some people will log approximately what they're going to have before dinner. If they need to excuse themselves and do it in the bathroom, then they do. They'll take their smartphone and they'll log it in MyFitnessPal or Chronometer or one of the trackers. And most people have weighed portions beforehand, and so they know more or less what 6 ounces of chicken looks like and what a half pound of broccoli looks like. Most people know what those portions are more or less, and they log it and they try to overestimate the portion size they're logging in, and they try to eat a little less than they logged. And you don't know 100% for certain, so there is some wiggle room, and it would be better if you did. But some people do that with some degree of accuracy, and I've had a lot of people succeed and come down in weight doing that. So you don't necessarily have to have the exact measurement at every meal. Some people say, well, a meal is a fistful of protein and a fistful of starch and 2 fistfuls of vegetables and a piece of fruit. So when they're at a restaurant or they're in a situation where they can't log it beforehand and they have to be obvious, then that's what they do. And their fists are always with them, so they always have that measuring device, and that works. Or some people will say a meal is 1 plate of food, no more than 1 inch high, a 9-inch plate or something like that. Or you got to figure out how big your plate is. You want to try to have some external measure, or at least some external guideline, and require yourself to either write it down beforehand or put it on the plate while you're there. And it's not perfect, and there's a little wiggle room, and the pig will squeal a bunch that, oh, you ate more, therefore you're off plan, therefore yum, 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 let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you are of the mindset and have the personality that really suffers when other people judge them, then the trade-off is probably better to be a little less than accurate. Actually, the rule of state is that I will always write down, log an approximation of what I'm about to eat before I eat it. You can do that in private. The behavior that 10 observers would follow you around and agree upon is whether you logged it or not. Whether it was accurate or not, that's covered by the word approximation. And if you start to get in trouble with that, or you're not losing weight, or your pig says 10,000 calories is approximately 1,000 calories, then you're in trouble. But most people in your situation, they're okay with that.
Yeah, I do log as well. I try to, but I'll log a really good meal. It'll look great on quote unquote paper. And then I will have the other things that I did not log, the roll or whatever else it is.
Well, don't do that. Don't do that.
You make it sound so simple. No.
Well, if you want to have a roll, then log the roll.
Right.
You can do that. You don't have to eat on whim. If you know you go into a restaurant and you like the bread and it's okay for you to have bread in your plan, then you can eat the bread. Just write down how much you want to have beforehand.
True.
Your pig is throwing up obstacles and saying that you're incapable of things that you're totally capable of. And worst that happens is you go to one meal and you say, oh, I forgot they have great bread here. I forgot. Say, okay, I'll have it tomorrow. I'll have it next time. Or maybe I'll get some to take out. I'll go home and I'll change my food plan tonight if I really want to. I'll journal about it for half an hour, write down why I want to do this, exactly how much bread I'm going to have, and then I'll do it tomorrow and I'll log it. That way you make decisions with your intellect as opposed to emotions on whim.
Right. It's definitely the whim that gets me, which I guess is the pig.
Food addiction is an addiction to making impulsive and emotional decisions about food. You can make emotional and impulsive decisions about food that aren't on your rules, that aren't causing you any trouble. I might impulsively decide to take a head of lettuce out of the refrigerator and chomp on it. But for the troubled areas, you want to make those decisions with your head. That's how you overcome this.
That makes sense.
What's your pig saying now?
How do you know? Yes. So the last, that's so funny. Oh, the last squeal that's kind of coming through is when you asked me, it went away. So give me a moment to go back to my brain.
Why does your pig say that you will ever have to consume calories without logging them again?
That I might not always have my phone, or it will be rude to log it on my phone. I definitely don't always have paper and pen, and I'm not always prepared in advance.
So how do we handle that?
I need to be better prepared.
Well, that's true. But suppose you go over to Rose's house and she says, oh, my mom's coming over. We're having a spontaneous lunch. You've got to come. Then what do you do?
I mean, I suppose I can see what's being served and then excuse myself to wash my hands in the bathroom and log. I'm not sure.
That's all you need to do.
It's good practice to wash hands before eating anyway.
And if you don't want to be interrupted, you can put your phone on Do Not Disturb. But at least you have your phone and you can always write on it.
Right.
Right?
That is true. The other one that came to me, the whole 1 bite off plan is a binge. That one hurts me
How come?
because immediately, like, these neon flashing lights of failure overcome me. I know that, there's the whole like hour by hour binge recovery, but it almost hurts me to make me so aware of it, if that makes sense. Instead of kind of like, okay, it happened, move on.
Some people are very thrown by the pig's activity when they miss the bullseye. And if you miss the bullseye by 1/4 of an inch, that doesn't say anything bad about you. It just means that you missed the bullseye by 1/4 of an inch. You need to make a tiny adjustment. But some people will say that if we call that a miss, like if we're very aware of where the boundary is and we call that a miss, that means the pig should be free to give up and shoot the arrows wherever it wants to. I've gone over this 1,000 times because I know what you're saying. I take a lot of heat for this position, but if you don't know where the boundary is on the bullseye, then you're going to lose a lot of valuable feedback. You won't know by how much you missed and in what direction and how much correction to make. And so to me, it seems better. You can decide for yourself. You can decide to not call it a binge, just call it a mistake or whatever. To me, the trade-off seems better to have that feedback than to blur the lines of the bullseye and not know whether you hit it or you didn't. Because for me and most of the people I work with, the blurry line, the kind of blind archery philosophy usually leads to the pig deteriorating the lines even further and further and further until the person's just shooting off the target. That's why I have that position, but there are some people who don't really want to analyze a minor mistake and they just want to see it happen and moved on. That's okay. I have no interest in you punishing yourself. I have no interest in you binging because you missed by a little bit. I have no interest in you fueling that negative voice inside of you. I have every interest in you feeling proud that you recognize the minor mistake and learning what you can from it and then moving on quickly.
I like the semantics of a miss. It's a small miss, it's a big miss, or it's a binge. Sometimes semantics will get to me. So I do want to acknowledge it, but maybe using that word binge, I got stuck. So
Sure.
I can still analyze it, like the archery analogy. I'm a very visual thinker. Like if I say it's a miss, I would picture the target, and that does work for me.
Perfect.
I mean, it's the same concept, but just basically changing the word.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. Go ahead and do that. That's perfect.
Okay. This is really helpful. I really, really, truly appreciate your time.
Hope you're very welcome. Do you have any other questions or concerns?
I'm like, don't hang up because no, I took a lot of notes. And of course, I'll eventually be able to listen back to the call. So I think it's a lot to absorb. Yeah.
You're doing great. The things to remember are, what if I'm right? What if this is the right plan? And you're going to call minor mistakes a miss as opposed to a binge.
Yeah.
Those are the two things you need to remember.
Perfect.
No more complicated than that.
I'm feeling good. Yeah.
Hope I'll see you in the groups, okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
And that brings us to the end of today's broadcast of Defeat Your Cravings, hosted by Dr. Glenn Livingston. Now, if you'd like to find out more about the products and services Dr. Glenn offers to help you dramatically reduce your cravings and stop overeating in 90 days or less, please visit defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. That's defeatyourcravingscoaching.com. Thanks.